I was out and about most of the day, driving hither and thither. But I did get back in time to listen to the album. I liked it. Sal, how are you? Good to see you. Long time.
Well, Squire, I see the Mediterranean sun is treating you well on your yacht.
Yes, I believe it is. Yes.
Well, before we kind of get into the more important stuff, just talking about your yacht reminds me of the time when we were neighbours and somebody stole your yellow wheels, right?
Off my Ford Escort RS 2000, which, believe it or not, in decent condition now sells for about £60,000.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
As we start to chat, the fans in Poland will all remember you very well from our big tours.
Yeah.
For those in the UK who didn't see so much of us in those days, let's go back to the 70s. And those who were alive those days will remember there was a big #1 called The Bump, and you were the schoolboy who was singing it, right?
Indeed, I was, yeah. And so we've both been cursed with the same problem in that our early hits, we were singing stratospherically high. Which is fine when you're 17, that's quite doable, but as you maybe you can still do it, I have no idea. But for me, those really high vocals are a bit of a nightmare now. I occasionally go out and do the odd gig, only because they pay me quite well to do it. So,
well, you do gig as Kenny?
Yeah, occasionally, very occasionally. Those very high vocals are a bit of a curse. So I'm actually pleased to hear on your new album that you're not doing so much of that, because I think your voice, it sounds great where it is. I think you've found your voice.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel the same. It took me 40 years to find out what I should sing like.
Exactly.
Before we leave Kenny, we've got our new album coming out in Cherry Red. I believe you've got something coming out in Cherry Red.
Who I think have put it out, well, they have put it out as a double album, I believe, earlier this year.
Okay, everybody, go and buy the Kenny double album. What's it called?
Yeah.
Best or something, or greatest hits?
You know what? I should know the answer to that, but I really don't know. Because I figure even if it sells 1 million these days, it's probably going to, raise about 15p or something for me. Talking of that, Gary Newman petitioned the government because he put in a letter of complaint about receiving royalties from about 1.5 million plays of, maybe it was Cars or one of his hits on YouTube and on all kinds of stuff. And he'd earned, I believe, I might have this wrong, so don't quote me on this, but something like £35.
So after that, I know that you had a good career for a while singing about cornflakes, right?
Yeah, well, when punk rock turned up, most bands of my time, we came under the I suppose the glam rock era, really, and all of those bands pretty much were persona non gratis at that moment. Almost everything changed. Even bands like Queen couldn't get arrested at that time.
Right, yeah.
Very, very strange time in music. And so at the age of whatever I was, 19, nearly 20, I suppose, I found myself unemployed. We couldn't really do anything. And the band, we disbanded at that point because we thought, what's the point? Trying to carry on like this. So in answer to your question, without going too far off track, I ended up singing, just about every TV product you can imagine, every TV commercial you can imagine. So from Kellogg, British Airways, you name it.
So all the British public, we're used to hearing your voice without realising it.
Yeah.
But you made good money from it, I believe.
I did, yeah, huge money at the time. Of course, that doesn't happen anymore. Things have changed for singers as well. It used to be, when we were singing commercials, we used to get paid, we had a contract, and we had an initial fee for doing the job, and then we would get a percentage of that fee every time the commercial was shown. And so this could add up to a lot of money, So, don't ask me what I did with it. Also, I have no clue.
You probably bought the car with the yellow wheels, I suppose. I remember hearing somewhere that you said back in the Kenny days you didn't play guitar, but you taught
That's
this.
right.
You taught
I
this
did.
later on. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, well, I've told people this story quite a few times, but I as a young kid, I was obsessed with the guitar, and I would listen to all of my favorite guitarists at the time: Jeff Beck, sadly, who we lost recently, Eric Clapton, all those kind of people, Jimmy Page, all those great guitarists at the time, and I would watch them. If I see them on TV, I was watching what they were doing, and I kind of knew how to play the guitar before I picked it up.
Huh.
Really strange. I don't know how that happened. And then at the age of 18, I bought a Fender Stratocaster, which I still have. It's with me right now, in fact. I used it with you. And I bought that Fender Stratocaster. And within 2 years of that, I was playing in Cotton Rebel.
Well, I also heard somewhere, which you never mentioned to me back in the time, that you did something with the Rolling Stones.
With Mick Jagger, not the Stones. Now, this was interesting. I got a phone call. Jagger was doing an album and he wanted to routine some new songs. So he needed a band. So they asked me would I go down and work with Mick Jagger. And of course, yeah, I said yes. I was quite excited about it, a bit of a hero of mine, right? And so I got to the rehearsal room a little bit early because a bit nervous, And I walked into the rehearsal room, no one there, gears on the stage, some guitar amps. I thought I'll go and plug in, try and get a nice sound for myself. And as I'm doing that, the door opens behind me, and a guy walked in. He said, "Sorry, mate, you can't use that rig. That's Beck's." And I thought, no, surely he doesn't mean Jeff Beck, because he was one of my absolute guitar heroes.
Right, right.
And the next thing is the door opened, and Jeff Beck walked in with a Stratocaster over his shoulder, not in a case, very cool, or straight off the back seat of the car, over his shoulder. And so I spent about a day and a half playing with them, with Omar Hakim on drums, drummer from Weather Report. So it was quite a day out.
Wow, what a fantastic story.
Yeah.
So let's go to our humble Classix Nouveaux days then, shall we, in comparison?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking now, we did quite a few tours, big tours, but we didn't actually do a full album at the time that you were with Classix, but we did.
We made some records though.
Yeah, we did do some songs that actually made it onto my first solo album.
Yeah.
And amongst them, the one that really stands out in my memory is Poland, Your Spirit Won't Die. Really kind of captures your guitar sound. It's like very controlled, very kind of melodic. We didn't go for amazing, great, fiery solos or anything in those days. That was not the era.
No.
But with your use of the effects and all that, it's just a really unique sound. I think that's very special to you, and I like that a lot. And of course, to the fans in Poland, they're crazy about that song forever because. At that time we went, they were still communist, and I wrote in the song about when we'll stand side by side, and then eventually they did. And so
I remember. I don't know if you remember the tour where we went to. You will remember, I'm sure. We went to a very famous monastery, and the head monk took us into the library. Do you remember? It was a library with books all around it, and he was saying, the priest was one monk that it was his life's work, this library. He made this library. And then he opened up the visitor book. Do you remember this?
I do. You're talking about Jasnagora. All of the Polish know that very well. Yeah.
And there was signatures in there from people like Margaret Thatcher and Churchill. But then he pointed to one signature. Don't you remember this story?
Whose signature was that?
He pointed to one signature, which was, I don't even remember what the name was on there, but it was, anyway, he pointed it and said, "This is Adolf Hitler."
Oh, yes.
And he said he came here, but he signed the book under a false name. Yeah. And I've always found that story very peculiar and interesting.
Oh, yeah. Well, strangely enough, in latter years, I went back to that place, Jasnagora, to play youth conference. But the way it worked was really weird because the performers were stuck right at the top of the monastery, the top of the hill, and the audience was down like 20 feet lower. And so we had to just look over, look over the battlements or something, and they're all waving from down there.
How weird. Yeah. I just remember the audiences were just great.
They were fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, very enthusiastic. I remember first time I think we went there, arrived at Warsaw Airport, and the crowds at the airport, it was crazy, wasn't it?
Like Beatlemania, wasn't it?
It really was. It really was like that.
So on the new album, of course, we've done a new version of Never Never Comes. That was their favourite song.
Yeah.
Everyone who's ever been in the band always talks about the Polish audiences all singing that song back to thousands of people. And so it's always a bit kind of nervy. They might hate our new version, so you ruined it.
I don't think so. I think it. So I listened to the new album. I think there's some great songs on there. There's some. It really hangs together as an album. Well, and like I said, and I think where you're singing, the register of your voice, I really love that. I think it's really good. It really comes together. It sounds great.
Well, one of the aspects of this new album is, of course, it's very much a guitar album, and the thing was, back in the day, we were somewhat restrained because guitars were out of vogue, and since
guitars were a dirty word, correct?
Especially guitar solos. So tell us to round up then. We heard about the Kenny album coming out, and so you got any other great?
Well, you forgot my Alison Moyet connection as well.
Oh yeah, Alison Moyet. My goodness, yeah, that was a good one.
I co-wrote one of her big albums with her, and was her guitarist for when she did her first solo tour. I played guitar for her. Yeah. So
well, that's got to be coming back out then, because everybody is Toya and Kim Wilde, everybody they're all having their stuff reissued. So are you mostly retired now, or are you still playing?
No, not really. I still play. Stuart Elliott, Lindsay's brother.
Yeah, used to be
the original Cody Road drummer and still is. And played with Kate Bush and Paul McCartney and you name it. He's played with all kinds of people. Stuart and I we do library albums pretty much every year. And we've got a publisher, Soho Music in London, and they send it around the world, and hopefully people use it in TV shows or advertising or whatever. So Stuart and I still work together and do that. So I very much try and keep my oar in with that. But live stuff, I've not been doing really any live stuff. I've been too busy, with the boat and this kind of stuff really. With the boat and having fun. And riding motorbikes. I'm just a bit of a hooligan.